TinkerCAD tips, object articulation. This is part 2. In my prior tutorial, I had been working on this object here, and I showed you this object down here that I used to split this snake that I made with wave duplication into separate elements and put a bit of a curve. You can see those cuts that I've put into it here. And I was using this particular design for a hinge and a pin to join the sections together. Now this particular one I'm going to put into this gap right here. And in so doing, I had scaled this down a little bit, and I had noted that when you scale these down enough, that you're going to want to make sure that you select all of those elements and then to widen it up a little bit. So let's continue putting this one into this gap here. Let's look here, it's rotated back a little bit. All right, let's drag it over into this gap. Let's grab the rotation handle and move it about a little bit so it kind of lines up across that gap. We'll move it here. Now note that I have my snap grids set here on point 1. Let's move it to off. That'll allow the most granular control of the movement here. And I want to move this such that the whole box is just protruding from the front part. And then this orange pin that you see here is all the way embedded into the front part. So we'll continue moving it here. About there. I can see a little bit on the other side. Let's move it. There we go. Let's go ahead and move all of this down a wee bit. There we go. And when you're satisfied it's lined up where it needs to be, what we want to do is grab just this whole box. Oh, looks like we need to move that in a bit more. We'll select all of that. Shift-D, select the snake part of it. Let's zoom in here. We can see everything that we're working on. Let's move it ahead. There we go. Zoom out. We'll grab just that whole box part. Shift-select the snake and hit Group. And we'll give that a moment to resolve. Once it's resolved, it'll look like that. You can see that hole in that front part now. We zoom out. If we hit the letter T, we'll make it transparent. You can see that. But the pin and the loop are still separate objects. We have yet to group those. Let's make that snake back to solid, non-transparent. I'm going to lasso select all 3 of those parts, verifying there's just the 3 here. Now I can click up here to group or hit Control-G, and we'll wait for that to resolve. Once resolved, it'll look like that. Let's back out, hit the letter T, make it transparent. It's kind of difficult to see with all the lines, but there we have the loop, and we have the pin, and we have the whole part of it. So that's that particular design, and I had also been working on an additional design, and I'm going to test both of these on here. This one's made a little bit differently. This is done with these square shapes here, this particular type of an object, and I did some resizing and stretching, so we have this loop, and then I made this type of a whole object. It's just a tube, so this is a 2-part hinge. This whole part will be embedded in the front section, and then the loop will be embedded in the back. Now I have one that I've oriented in the vertical, up and down like this, and then I have another one that's done in the horizontal here, like this. And note that I've angled it down a little bit to help with the printing so that it's not completely flat and won't need as much support under here, but both of these should work equally well. So we have a gap up here. Let's take this one right here and let's embed, let's say, this vertical one in that part of it. We'll select the two, Control D to duplicate. We'll bring that over here. Let's move in a bit here. Let's make sure this is sized correctly. I'm going to size it down a little bit. I'm holding Alt and Shift. Everything gets resized equally. Okay, that's about the right size. While they're both still selected, we'll bring it over. Let's grab the rotation handle. We'll rotate it a bit. To help our cause here, let's select on the snake and make it transparent so we can see what we're doing with those inner parts. We'll position right above it. The orientation looks good, but now we need to move it forward such that the whole part of it is protruding by the front half. Let's go ahead and select on the snake, make it a solid again. Kind of move in here visually. We can see that that whole part needs to be moved forward a bit more. So we'll select everything, deselect the snake part of it, zoom in, and we'll just inch that ahead a little bit more. There we go. Check from the side. All right, once we have it placed, let's zoom in. I'm going to select just that whole tube. Shift select the snake part of it. Verify I have just the two items. I'm going to group that together with Control G or this button up here. And then we'll wait for that to resolve. We do a lot of waiting for TinkerCAD to resolve complex objects like these. Once it's resolved, it should look like that. If we zoom in here, we can see the hole that's been embedded or grouped into the front part. Move underneath, we can see the same thing. Now that loop part of it is still a separate object, so we're going to want to lasso select the two of those. Make sure I have just the two objects here, and we're going to group and allow that to resolve. Once it's been grouped, it should look like that. And I have this as multicolor, so the snake object here is yellow, and then the loop, etc., is orange. But if we make it transparent and zoom in, we can kind of see the whole shape there, and then the loop shape. So that's the end of this tutorial. In the next one, I am going to show you quickly a printed version of this that I did, where I tested out my first design here. Well, heck, let me just show you that in this tutorial. I'll quickly show you the one that I printed up and how well this design worked. So here's that articulated design. This was using the first type of hinge that I described, and I had scaled this particular model down a little bit. And as I went to each one of these, I decreased the size, and then I noticed on this last one here that it could have been widened up a little bit to make it a little more substantial when it printed. But each one of these joints moves quite freely back and forth and in this direction. So that design works pretty well. I could see that being useful depending upon the type of design that you're working on. As always, like, follow, and share. If you have any comments or questions, you know where to drop those. And I will see you on the next one.